The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Here we go. Talkin' Buds Leaf Show back at our usual time, our Sunday morning time slot. We've made this time slot our home over the years, and we'll be here a lot. Unless they're playing on a Sunday night, you can typically bank on us to be putting out a new episode on Sunday morning, and then maybe another one during the week, but we love our Sunday morning episodes.
Yeah, Sunday morning, it's not always the best for like a hangover. Like, say you went out Saturday, you had a good time, and I'm texting you being like, what's the latest you can do?
Yes.
Because I just need that extra hour to sleep,
Well,
you know?
I'm a dad now, so my days of waking up on Sunday morning hungover are behind me.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, we got to get it out. We got to get it out of the way early, too, because we know what's happening after that.
That's right.
Soon as 1 o'clock starts,
It's yes, yeah.
See you
It's like
later.
you got to be in front of the TV, exactly.
Yeah.
So, what have you thought of the preseason thus far? We've got a bunch of things we're going to dive into: Nick Robertson versus Max Pacioretty and all that camp storyline stuff. But we've got a few games under our belt now. There's this trend going on in the NHL where a lot of the stars aren't playing in the road games. It's a lot of the fringe guys that are playing in the road games, and the stars are staying home. We've seen some injuries, like Tavares left the game with an injury the other night. Nylander, Robertson, we'll talk about that. Pat Laine, that looked bad.
Yeah.
That looked bad. So what have you thought of the preseason thus far?
Oh, man. I actually think, even though the last 3 scores have been 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, I think the preseason has actually been pretty decent hockey. I know it means absolutely nothing. And it's funny how if anyone gets a little nick, they're just, see you later. You're off the ice. Like, with Nylander with the head, I know that was kind of a stupid play, and we'll get into that, but anything head-related, fine, but it's funny how anybody has any sort of bruise. It's like, you're off the ice. See you later. Which, you don't want guys to get hurt before the season, so I get it. But, I mean, I think all the dudes who are fighting for spots and all the guys who are playing for the Marlies and trying to make a first impression, I think they've played their asses off.
That's what I was going to say.
I think it's been pretty entertaining hockey. I think they've been, last night it was 2-1, but guys were skating, guys were fighting, guys were forechecking hard. There was a power plays, penalty kills. I thought Hildeby played pretty well. I think for preseason hockey, it's actually been pretty decent. I've actually enjoyed watching it.
3 tilts in the Saturday night game against the Habs.
Yeah.
The Habs, I'm sorry. Habs fans are going to jump all over me for this. You guys are such loser energy from the Habs. They came out and they were just running around, being goons. Jack-Eye spazzes and starts wailing on, is it Perret? Is it Cedric Perret? I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name.
Dude, when I'm watching the games and I don't know, I'm trying to figure out which number is who. I feel bad for the Gord Miller and Chris Cuthbert. How do you I'm looking at these numbers. I'm like, who the hell is that?
Well, he clearly didn't mean to hurt Laine. And then Jack-Eye goes out and starts wailing on his head, spazzing. And then Josh Anderson fighting in the preseason like an absolute hero. It's like, you're a loser. Losers.
Jack-Eye's a bit of a hero for sure.
Loser energy from the Montreal Canadiens, as far as I'm concerned. Big time.
Well, they had a lot of regulars in the lineup too. I thought last night they had their opening lineup ready to go against the Leafs B squad.
But I agree with you. A lot of these fringe guys have been working their bag off, and I wonder if that has been Berube has kind of injected that with these guys, and it's just they all see this as sort of a fresh chance and a fresh opportunity. Some of the other guys that I've really liked too, a guy who stood out to me in the games he's played, Bobby McMahon. I think Bobby McMahon has looked fantastic. I think you're talking about working their ass off. That guy works his ass off on every single shift, and to me, he's looking like a guy that is going to become a Craig Berube favorite very quickly.
He just skates really well. I just notice guys immediately when they're able to skate well and forecheck, and that's what he does. And there's just some other dudes who are penciled in on this roster who don't do that well.
Yeah.
And I think Pontus Holmberg kind of fits in that mold too. You got another guy who just skates well, who forechecks hard. And I thought he's created a lot of chances. And I think that's kind of because Bobby McMahon's one of those guys where like they get it. He came up, he surprised everybody, and now he's kind of just like penciled into the lineup. But there's a bit of doubt in the back of your mind, being like, is this guy actually like an NHLer, or did you just have a quick flash in the pan and we're just putting him in the lineup because of that? But no, you're watching him. It's like, no, this guy can skate. This guy can forecheck. This guy can create opportunities. So like, yes, what I've seen from him has been, that's exactly what I want to see.
So this has been the week of Nick Robertson. It started in the first game against the Habs at home with the bizarre sequence with William Nylander where he goes to give William Nylander a push on the back check. It backfires horribly. Nylander falls to the ice, takes a knee right to the head, leaves the game. I was pretty vocal on my Twitter account. I went full Nick Kypreos on my Twitter account, and I was like, what a complete moron.
Buried him.
Yeah, he did. Kipper buried him.
Buried him in the intermission. Oh, my God.
And you know what? I didn't totally disagree. Like, I thought that was a really stupid thing to do. And some people came after me and were like, oh, come on. You see that play all the time. And it's like, yeah, you do. But I just didn't like, dude, have some situational awareness. It's the preseason. You don't need to be doing that right now. You literally could have. Nylander has had the head issues. He missed playoff games last year with migraines. He's had a history of head issues. You could have injured the guy and gave him a concussion. Then you don't have William Nylander, a guy that they're banking on for center depth to start the season, all because you made a bonehead play. I hated it, but he scores a goal in that game, and then he scores 2 on Saturday night. And I think a lot of people are looking at this as Nick Robertson versus Max Pacioretty for that spot in the lineup. And it's going to be really interesting because they're two different hockey players at different points in their career who bring different things to the table. And you just wonder what direction Berube is going to go in as we get closer to the start of the season.
I don't really look at it as Pacioretty versus Robertson. I'm sorry. You look at the projected starting lineup, like Ryan Reeves is just like, I love Ryan Reeves. He's necessary for some things, but that's a guy who's not playing every single night. Who's the other guy? Steven Lawrence? Like, no.
He's
like,
another guy in a PTO.
Exactly. It's like he's penciled in on the fourth line. Like, I don't know. Nick Robertson is fun to watch this preseason. I'm not gonna lie, because he's just he's a
spark plug.
Yeah, he almost brings an element to this team that they haven't had in a long time. Like, it's almost like you're watching him and he's kind of playing with a bit of like a fuck you attitude, to be honest with you. And I feel like they haven't had this on their roster, and it's just interesting watching him. I think the Nylander play was just a freak accident. Like, I know you buried him. I know Kipper buried him. I've seen guys do that. It was just a bad series of events. Like, he just does it. Nylander falls. Anytime the only people who haven't played hard and aren't ready for the season are the top guys. So it's just like, he went off the ice. It didn't look good, but Nick Robertson could flat out shoot the puck. Like, that's what we know about him. He proved it last night. He's proved it in the last year. But it's just, it's like for every good play he makes, there's a boneheaded play that follows. Like, that's kind of like,
we don't know a lot about Craig Berube yet. You mentioned on our last episode that, we're going to find out as we wade into the season more here, some of Craig Berube's quirks. But if you're going to judge the book by the cover, he seems like an old school guy. And what do old school guys do? They lead towards veteran experience. And if I was a gambling man, I would say Berube is probably still leaning towards Max Pacioretty because he probably trusts Pacioretty more in his 200-foot game than he trusts Nick Robertson. And Nick Robertson is in a weird place because of that, because he's not the most sound defensive player. Although he looked pretty good on the PK, but again, that's preseason. We got to wait and see what he's like in the regular season. But because he's not as effective all 200 feet, you really need to put him in situations where he can shoot the puck and where he can score you a goal. Whereas I think you have more faith in a guy like Pacioretty just putting him out there in any situation because he's seen it all. But it's weird. It's a weird sort of dynamic between two players that are really on opposite sides of the spectrum. You look at the projected lineup, and we don't deal with hypotheticals on this podcast, but I kind of want to go down a hypothetical road here because I look at this. TSN had a board last night where they projected their opening night lineup or the final roster, and I look at Calle Järnkrok and I look at David Kampf, and I'm just like, they got to move off one of these guys. Like, there's 2 million, 2.4 for Kampf and 2.1 for Järnkrok. Like, these are two guys that were very much Sheldon Keefe guys. I think you look at a guy like Kampf and you've got Pontus, our guy Pontus, waiting in the wings, who could potentially take that fourth line center role. And I would love to see Tree Living. It doesn't have to be Robertson versus Pacioretty if we can move off one of these guys. Järnkrok's already hurt. Keefe loved him. Keefe's gone. So it's like, I would really like to see Tree explore moving off one of these two guys. I don't think they need to be paying one of, and quite honestly, both of these guys. Like, let's see what they can do here. Even if it's just moving out money and getting next to nothing in return, that's fine because you want the cap space to keep some of these other guys around.
Having Calle Järnkrok in the top 6, like, come on.
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, let me say this. I don't think Calle Järnkrok is a bad hockey player at all. I think he is a veteran guy. I think he knows what he's doing out there. Again, another guy who brings like a 200-foot game. You can kind of play him in every situation. And I think he's kind of underrated when it comes to shooting the puck. But this is why I don't really see it as like Robertson versus Pacioretty, because I'm looking at Calle Järnkrok in the top 6, and I'm like, he's not a top 6 hockey player.
No.
He's really not. And he's kind of been injury prone. So it's like you look at that projected lineup they threw up, and within a week or two, that can all change in 2 seconds. Like Ryan Reeves is not going to play every night. Calle Järnkrok's going to break his hand again. Like, you can't really look at that lineup and be like, this is set in stone. I just don't think Calle Järnkrok is a top 6 hockey player. And I mentioned it with Bobby McMahon at the start of the episode. You notice guys who can skate and who can forecheck and have speed. Calle Järnkrok has no speed. He cannot skate. He kind of file him under the John Tavares kind of not very fast hockey player. So I just Calle Järnkrok is not a top 6 hockey player, and it's going to be interesting to see as the season progresses if he stays healthy, and what Craig Berube is going to think of him. But I'm kind of looking at him and I'm like, I'm sick of watching this guy play hockey.
Yeah, he's just
he doesn't bring anything.
I got 2 words for you, pal.
Too exciting. Like,
I got 2 words for you, pal. Kerfoot vibes. I get massive Alex Kerfoot vibes from Calle Järnkrok, just because it was another guy that Sheldon Keefe was in love with, that loved having him out on the ice. He just loved putting him out there in a checking role, which is fine. And I agree with you. I'm not sitting here saying Calle Järnkrok's a bad hockey player. No. I'm sitting here saying the way camp is going and the fact that there are a limited number of spots, I don't think you need to be paying this guy $2 million for what he brings. And I'm also there on David Kampf, man. Like, I'm over David Kampf. Why on earth they gave that guy a 4-year extension last year is beyond me.
Gym. You should see that guy in the gym. You should
beyond
see him
me.
Squat and bench press and lunge. You should see this guy's jacked. And it's like, well, guess what? It doesn't fucking translate to the ice. The guy has no skill at all. Like, he is allergic to making skilled plays on the ice.
You could take David Kampf's $2.4 million and replace it with Pontus Holmberg's $800,000. And
they're interchangeable.
Yes,
they really
Pontus Holmberg is not going to do a worse job than David Kampf.
I actually think Pontus Holmberg is more skilled than David Kampf.
Yes.
Like, they're pretty similar. I don't think Pontus is putting in 20 a season, but I think you could make the argument that he's a more skilled hockey player and could provide more on the fourth line. But if you look at that, it's hilarious when you look at that 2.1 for Järnkrok and 2.4 for Kampf. If those 2 contracts like disappeared, it's like the top 4 guys are making astronomical money. And then and then you have Domi, and then the next guys are like all making $1.5 million, but it's like,
Yep.
oh my God, this roster is so
as far as the forwards.
flawed, man.
Well, as far as the forwards, if you look at the D, like Tanev's making 7.5 or 4.5. Riley's making 7.5. So it's like,
I don't know.
Yes, but in terms of the forwards, you're right. It is a massive, massive drop off.
Yeah,
massive
it's just
drop
like
off.
this is a flawed roster.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We got to wait and see what happens. But yeah, I'd like to see them. I really hope that Tree and the management team don't make this about Robertson versus Pacioretty. I would like to see them look at other places in that forward group and say, who can we move out of here so we can have both these guys? Because I agree. You know what? Like I buried Robertson. The other night, I did not like the way he handled himself in the summer. I thought that he way overvalued himself in the summer. But like you said earlier, he's come into this camp with a bit of a fuck you chip on his shoulder, and I like it. I like
it. He was on a 20, like MJ pointed out in the broadcast tonight. He was on a 20-goal pace if he played 82 games. Like this guy will score some goals for you. Like there's no two ways about it.
And so if you're going to compare him to Yarncroc and Kampf for a team that's struggled to score goals, especially in the playoffs.
Well, here's what you got to live with. It's what I said earlier. For every good play that Nick Robertson makes, he makes a stupid play too. Like that's what you got to live with. It's like Calle Yarncroc is not going to give you anything amazing, but he's not going to make stupid plays out there. He's a smart veteran hockey player. Nick Robertson, or he'll go and snipe you one, but then he'll go push William Nylander down with a stick and risk a concussion. Like that's just who he is. He's just a risk and reward type of player. And I don't know. You just got to decide at one point how much goal scoring matters to you when you put this guy in the lineup. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting situation with him. Like it's almost fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. It's made a lot of camp, like, because the big boys have been kind of a non-factor.
They've been nowhere. Like,
but you know,
they might as well not even play.
I don't think that's a bad thing, though. I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I honestly don't. This whole era has been core four. So Matthews has got kind of a small lingering injury, which has put him kind of out of the public eye. Marner, they've really sort of protected him. And yes, Marner's always going to be a lightning rod, but keep him kind of out of the spotlight, not talk about him. Tavares, Nylander dealing with lingering injuries, keeping them out of the spotlight. Like, so we've been talking about the Nick Robertsons. We've been talking about the Easton Cowans. I think it's kind of refreshing that we're not just obsessing about the core four, because guess what? We got 82 games coming up on October 9th where we're going to obsess about the core four.
How much you want to bet the first comment on this video is preseason, boys?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. That's
preseason.
Yeah, 100%.
I know.
100%.
I know it is.
So
I hope they're ready to play, though. You know, I get it. It's preseason. You don't want to run your top guys out there. If they have a nagging injury, sit them. It at the end of the day, it's correct. It is preseason, so we're not doing anything crazy here. But like you've seen it in the NFL this year, you kind of see it in every sport. It's like the preseason is kind of disappearing in every sport year after year. I hope these guys are fucking ready to play when the season starts, though.
The way
we've seen the way they've started seasons the past 2 years. They look like absolute shit. And I know they've turned it around, but you got to be ready to play at the same time.
Well, the way it's been going with these injuries, you could see the NHL preseason going the way of the NFL even more, where these guys aren't going to play. The Montreal Canadiens might have lost Patrick Laine for the year. Last night.
True.
Like that was bad. Like if you watch the replay of that, his knee gets twisted. He couldn't put any weight on it. Man. Oh, it's brutal. It was brutal.
Guy cannot catch a break. I feel awful for him because he had a great chance to turn around there. That's brutal luck.
I'm checking Twitter right now to see if there's been an update on Patrick Laine's condition. I'm not currently seeing one, but yeah, that was really tough to watch. Yeah. All right, you pointed out earlier that someone's going to say it's preseason, and as Leafs Nation and as a responsible Leaf fan, I have to do my duty, which is I'm totally going to overreact over a certain guy's performance and just hype him to the moon preemptively. Tony Stolarz.
Yeah.
I am all in on Anthony Stolarz. 6'6", 243. The guy looks like a monster in the net. His gear, his Leaf gear that he had.
The blue pads.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Looked incredible in the net the other night. I really, really like what I've seen from Anthony Stolarz. Really like what I've seen.
Yeah, I texted you immediately. I'm like, if this guy has any sort of success, if this guy has any sort of run he goes on where he's stopping pucks, this fan base is going to love this guy. And he's going to be penciled in every single night if he looks any good. And the blue pads, you're right. It's like, I'm looking at him, it's like, what Leaf goalie has rocked kind of a blue forward pad in the net? It looks good, but it's just, we don't know. I didn't watch this guy play in Florida, like I can listen to projections on TSN talking about how good of a goalie he is, but at the end of the day, I need to watch this guy play the position. And so far what I've seen is he's an absolute fucking monster, which is very good for that position. And we know that the other goalie that we're relying on can't stay healthy to save his life. So if this guy steps into the net in preseason, and he's going to play night 2, because they're going back to back to start the season.
Yep.
If this guy looks good, put him in the fucking net, and everyone's going to want to see him in net. Like that is the best case scenario for the season. If Tony Stolarz can just become, and I know they haven't had a number 1 goalie. I know they don't have a Shesterkin. I know they don't have a Vasilevsky, but I know he doesn't play in the league anymore. But Jack Campbell was an absolute nobody in this league. He showed up here, he turned into a number 1 guy, and he was playing for them in the playoffs. Ilya Samsonov was not a number 1 guy in this league. Showed up here, was playing games for them all year, won them their only playoff series in this whole era. So I know that this team can take goalies that are kind of on the fringe of being starters, 1A, 1B type guys, and make them into something and get good goaltending out of them. And you're just hoping that Tony Stolarz can fit under that mold that they've had with Jack Campbell and Ilya Samsonov. So that's the best case scenario for them, is this guy playing real meaningful hockey for them, because we know Joe Wall is just not every day that goes by. I love Joe Wall and I want to see him do well, but I feel like I've kind of have a smoke screen in front of my face where it's like I think every day that goes by, the less confident I am that he's going to play regular games for this team.
So I want to hit on that quickly, but Tony Stolarz last year for the Florida Panthers, 24 games played with a .925 save percentage. So if you look at him and Wall together, they're kind of the same in that not a huge sample size, but what you have seen has been very promising.
Now, what I will say about that quickly is he was playing in front of maybe the best defense core I've ever seen.
Yes.
Their defense last year was ridiculous. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, I'll say that.
So on the topic of Joe Wall, I'm dealing in hypotheticals quite a bit today, and we always say we're not going to do that, but I think everyone thought he was going to play on Saturday night, and then kind of late in the day, it gets revealed that Hildeby's going to play the whole game, and Craig Berube says, we changed it up. I don't think I'd look into it too much. He's going to get his games. He's been doing well. He's had really good practices, and I'm like, is this fucking guy hurt already?
Yeah, he's had really good practices.
Yeah, is this fucking guy, this guy had played a period and a half, and is he fucking hurt already?
Yeah, he is. I actually, that told me, I missed that, and you sent me that, and once I saw he's had really good practices, I was he's hurt.
The organization, it's very Shanahan era Leafs to want to keep that under wraps, and to me that Berube quote just feels like he's covering for him because they don't want it to get out and have people start freaking out and going, well, why did you pay this guy $3.6 million when he literally has nothing but a track record of getting hurt constantly? And so I'm kind of sitting here going, are you fucking telling me that this guy played a period and a half of a preseason game and he's already dealing with an injury?
He already tweaked something in his leg. 100%.
Oh my God. Again, we don't know this. We need to preface, we don't know this. We're just speculating.
And he doesn't fit under the core four where it's take every precaution. These guys might start the season slow, but we know they always end up making the playoffs and having a good year. So it's like you can cut those guys some slack every day of the week when it comes to preseason. This guy doesn't fit under that umbrella. Like, you've proved nothing. You need to be in the preseason playing as much hockey as you can to get ready, because you've proved absolutely nothing in this league.
Exactly.
Other than the fact that you can't stay healthy.
Again, I don't think we need to spend too much time on this because it is speculation, but my God, you got to be kidding me if this guy's really dealing with an injury.
Good practices.
This is, I know. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I want to kind of go off the board here because the media has been talking about this lately, and we obviously spend the whole season like in the Atlantic Division. The Leafs are always finishing in the top 3. We want them to win the division this year, but it's been a huge conversation in the media of which one of these teams, the bottom 4 teams in the Atlantic, is going to take a step this year. The media loves saying it's going to be the Ottawa Senators. I think that's strictly because of Linus Ullmark. And listen, the guy's a former Vezina winner. Like, that's definitely a reason to get to feel confident in the Ottawa Senators. But I look at this division, and I got to be honest with you, I don't see it with any of these bottom 4 teams. Like, the Red Wings were right there last year. I don't know if they've gotten any better in this offseason. I look at the top teams, like, are the Lightning going to all of a sudden be significantly worse this year? No. The Florida Panthers, the only hope you have is that there's a Stanley Cup hangover from going there 2 years in a row, but I don't see it. The Bruins are in this really weird situation with Jeremy Swayman, and if they don't get it sorted out and get him paid, then Jonas Korpisalo is going to be their starting goalie.
Who has beaten the Leafs in a playoff series?
It's true. So it's true. And yes, Jonas Korpisalo was terrible in Ottawa, but the Boston Bruins and the Ottawa Senators are not the same.
The Boston Bruins are that organization that just figure it out.
Exactly.
I do not think any of those teams, like, I actually, if you look at those 4 teams at the top, I trust the Leafs the least out of those 3. Like, Tampa has shown that they have fallen off a little bit, but I trust Tampa, Boston, and Florida more than I trust the Toronto Maple Leafs. I have no idea what team at the bottom is going to take a step. This Linus Ullmark storyline for the Ottawa Senators, I think this guy's just set up for failure. You look at his career in the NHL, he played 49 games in this season. He won the Vezina. He had a .940 save percentage. And you look at his career, his numbers are pretty good, but he played 49 games that year. Every other year, he's barely played 40 hockey games. And all of a sudden, he's going to come in and be based on the expectations, you're looking at 50 plus hockey games for this guy at Vezina quality. I think this guy is set up for failure
in front of a defense core that is not the Boston Bruins.
And I don't watch the Ottawa Senators every night, but you listen to the beat guys, you listen to the guys who cover that team. They're very Toronto Maple Leafs. For every good play they make a stupid play in their own end. And it seems like they're not always committed to playing 200-foot hockey. So like, I don't know. Like, the Red Wings had a pretty good year last year. They tailed off. You can't trust Buffalo. It's
well, the Buffalo, the Hayes had me laughing listening to Overdrive about day 1 of camp. Everyone's like doing like fitness testing and stuff. Lindy Ruff's got the Sabres out in the ice yelling at guys.
Lindy Ruff. Like, you had to go back. See, that tells me everything, right? You went back to Lindy Ruff. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, that is not a recipe for, at least the Sens went out. Like, I think Travis Green's a pretty decent coach from what he did in Vancouver. So, like, that's like, DJ Smith was way over his head.
Yeah. I thought he was a serial winner.
Yeah. Well, I think he was a little over his head with that job. So maybe he'll give them kind of a push, because he seems like, if you look at Travis Green on the bench, that guy looks pissed off. Unnecessarily,
all the time,
24/7.
Yeah,
like, he's unnecessarily pissed off all the time.
I didn't know this, but I was listening to Pardon My Take, and Bissonnette and Whitney were on, and they were talking about Ullmark, and apparently the Bruins had it all set up to trade Ullmark to the LA Kings, and he said no, and then he ends up going to the Ottawa Senators. It's like, that is Are you out of
Yeah.
your mind? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
You Ottawa over LA? What are we doing?
Yeah. I think he's set up for a disaster. Like you just
Yes.
look at his career, it's like he's not he's a 1A, 1B goalie if you look at his career.
Yeah.
And they're expecting this guy to come in and like he got replaced last year. He won he won the Vezina the year before. Last year he got replaced by a guy who currently is not signed and is looking for a double-digit contract. Like it's yeah, I think that could be a disaster for Sens fans. Like I really think that
Have
it
you
could.
seen the trailer for the upcoming NHL Amazon series, specifically all the clips involving William Nylander? The first episode features William Nylander and David Pasternak, and you and I are going to review this episode. Like that is one thing we're going to do.
And you might hear a cameo.
You might hear a cameo on that episode. Stay tuned for that. But
might hear you.
But we're going to review this because they actually have the audio of the famous "Stop Crying, Bro." But he doesn't say this isn't Junior. He says, "Just shoot it."
That's our number one TikTok. That's our
that is
number one TikTok and Insta reel.
Yes,
us being like,
Tyler
I'm fucking
Bertuzzi.
out of here, man. Like that's our top social piece of content. So thank you for that. I only have one thing to say about that trailer. This guy, okay, I'm gonna be tread carefully here because migraines are very serious. Okay, people who have migraines, it's extremely debilitating, and head injuries and stuff like that is not to be fucked around with. But he's at home with a migraine, missing playoff games.
Yes.
And he's watching the game on TV.
Yes.
Anybody who's had a migraine, like you're in bed. Like you're in bed with the lights off, with your eyes closed, trying to get better. This guy's at home with a migraine watching the game.
I guess
that's what I get from the trailer. It's
maybe plowed through it because they had this set up with Amazon. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting perspective to see him commenting sort of on it in real time. Like he should be in the lineup and he's not. And to have Amazon there.
And to have a migraine at home watching a television screen, like aren't bright lights and like it's just that bothers you when you have migraines. I've been around people who have serious migraines and it's like you need to close your eyes, lay down, and just do anything to feel better. And this guy's at home with the cameras watching television. It doesn't look good to me. I know some people won't see it that way, but if you've really spent time with someone who has bad migraines, you're looking at that being like, I don't get it. That's where I get it.
Earlier, I commented on how I don't think it's been the worst thing that the core four have sort of been out of the limelight here in training camp. And to further that point, obviously, Mitch Marner was asked if he's going to watch the episode, given the fact that a huge storyline in it is William Nylander telling him to stop crying. And his comment is, I probably won't watch it, to be honest. I like watching other documentaries, other sport documentaries. I'll probably tune in a little bit, but I don't think I'll be sitting on the couch throwing that on the first opportunity. Ryan, if you read, so all the media beat guys quoted him saying that. If you go on Twitter and read the responses from people, man, this fan base is sour on this guy. Oh my God, this fan base is so sour on this guy. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. He and his camp need to keep their mouths shut this season when it comes to contract negotiations, 12 million, whatever. Keep your mouth shut. Go out there. All Mitch Marner has to do this year is keep his mouth shut, play good hockey, and then in the playoffs, don't look like you're scared to get hit. That's it. That's it. You don't even need to produce points in the playoffs. You need to win a battle in the corner, and people will start to lay off you. That's literally how low the bar is with him in the playoffs. But it's like, you read this. And again, I've said this 100 times. Some of the shit people say is completely unhinged and psychotic. But the point being is, man, this fan base is in a bad way with this guy. There are a lot of people who just are so done looking at, hearing from, everything to do with Mitch Marner. It is ugly.
Well, it's just he can't help but shoot himself in the foot. Like he just sounds like an idiot when he says that.
Well,
It's
you
like
said I loved your
I
quote
watch
last week. I loved your quote last week when you said he sounds like an elementary schooler. Like when he gives a quote or whatever, he sounds like an elementary schooler that's like doing a presentation to his class.
yeah, well, first of all, he sounds like an idiot because he's like, I like watching other sport documentaries. And it's like, yeah, one just drops every week, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a brand new,
Do you
well-produced
think he's watched
sports documentary.
Do you think he's watched Mr. McMahon?
No, well, apparently he is because he doesn't watch. He likes other sports.
Okay, so maybe he's watching. Maybe he's like, no, maybe he's saving the Mr. McMahon documentary for when this NHL one comes out. He's gonna watch Mr. McMahon instead.
Well, it's just not genuine. It's like, why can't you just sit up there and be like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it. Like, of course. Like, yeah, it's cool. The NHL. Why wouldn't you stand up there and be like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this. I think it's really cool. I think the NHL is smart for doing this and letting access in. I think it's great for the fans. I think it's great for the league. And yeah, I'm for sure gonna watch it. But instead he's up there being like, yeah, I actually watch other sport documentaries. And it's like,
well,
you're not genuine. You sound stupid. Like
and that's one of the things that's made him sort of like why people find him unlikable is it's very defensive all the time. And
he's being defensive in that answer. Like he's just not genuine. And when you're not genuine, people see through it, sniff it out, and they won't like you.
Yes.
Even something as small as commenting on a documentary, you fuck it up. Like, it's like, don't just be a human being, be a normal human being.
I feel bad for the guy because he clearly doesn't have anyone around him that points this out to him, Like, no one has sat him down and said, Mitch, your PR game is terrible. He's surrounded by enablers. And you've heard stories about his camp over the years, so it's not totally shocking. You hear stories about his agent and how he conducts his business and like what a savage his agent is. So it's like, yeah, I feel bad for him because like somebody really needs to sit him down and go, but they all do it. Again, here we are talking about this again. They all do it. At the end of the Boston series last year, go to that episode, our second most viewed episode last year, and I go on like a 20-minute rant about the idiotic quotes that come out of all these guys' mouths. But I agree with you. I think that's what why a lot of people find him so unlikable. It's the play on the ice in the playoffs. It's the demanding the amount of money that you demand for how you play in the playoffs. And then it's how you come off in the media. And something the theory I've always had about Marner, and I will die on this hill, is he'll criticize the media in an interview and he'll say, well, you guys, talking about the media, but he's not talking about the media. He's talking about the fans. He's using the media as a way, because he's not going to come out and say the fans, right? Like no one's going to do that. That's career suicide in this town. But I've always felt like he points at the media, but he's not pointing at the media. He's pointing at the fans. He's pointing at all the people who comment on that tweet being like, God, I can't stand this guy. I'm so tired of this guy. And like I said, to a degree, losing your shit over a pro athlete to that level is a bit unhinged. However, the guy is constantly giving people material who dislike him.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I do kind of feel for him because it's like he's not hearing you and I like barely critique him. He's listening to the people who are going over the top. He also had that extremely like serious incident that happened to him a couple of years ago. So it's like he's seeing the absolute worst of what's being said about him, or like and he's not listening to the fair critiques. But yeah, I'm just listening to him do that, and I'm just like banging my head, being like, even in the most simplest question, you're messing it up. Like you're not doing it right. And it's just, he's killing himself.
Yep. Well, 2 more preseason games to go, and then we're into the real stuff. We got the Red Wings on Thursday in Detroit, and then they're at home on Saturday against the Red Wings again. So we probably got another episode or 2 in us. We're definitely going to do an episode where we review the Nylander episode of the I'm saying episode a lot. We're going to do an episode where we review the episode and an episode and an episode. We review the Nylander documentary. We're going to talk about that up, down, left, and right, give our critique on it. And then, we're into the real thing. I think after The team is they've sort of selected the roster. We'll do another one there and kind of tee up the season, and then we'll be back. They've got a back-to-back to start the year. They got Habs Devils. We usually do a post-game episode after the first game of the year, but we're going to do it after the second game of the year this year because what's the point in doing it after the Habs?
Right.
Yes. Yeah, they got so we're not going to do an episode after the Habs game because it'll be dated in 2 seconds. So we'll wait, and you can expect a post-game after the second game of the season against the New Jersey Devils, which is also interesting because Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, right
in
off
New
the gate.
Jersey.
Right
out of the gate. Right out of the gate.
Get it out of the way.
So lots of content coming your way. If you like what you see, hit that like and subscribe button below.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We really appreciate it. If you're listening to the audio version, do the same thing. I got the ring light. Well, the ring light's up there now. I got it out of my glasses. People commenting on the.
It's still in your glasses.
It's still in my.
Get ready. Get ready.
Well, no, if I'm now, it's not as bad. Before I was looking directly into the camera and it was like ring light like in my eyes. Now I have to tilt my head up a little bit, but there's nothing I can do.
If you're watching this video and you're not listening to what we're like, you're focusing on ring lights. You need to check yourself. Just like, it doesn't matter.
But in fairness, it was driving me crazy too. I was watching the episodes and I was like, God, this fucking ring light. I look like an alien. Yeah. All right, everybody. Now we're going in circles talking about ring lights. That's our sign to get out of here. So we'll see you guys in a couple days.